Hey, welcome in everyone. We are the Uncanny JMen, here to answer the question, what did we just watch? As always, we're here to discuss the most recent episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law, the season finale, episode 9. As always, there will be spoilers for She-Hulk, maybe some other properties, but definitely for She-Hulk in this discussion. You have been warned. So with that, Jade, would you like to start us off in this discussion?
All right, so just to let you guys know, we got on this call that we got ready to record, and we were like, yeah, let's not talk about a single thing because like we just wanted to talk about it right away. So,
and even more than that, we both just finished watching it.
Yeah,
we both watched it and then immediately came on to talk in front of all of you for the first time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Intro, classic Hulk TV show intro. They made it look very much like the Hulk show back, Lou Ferrigno. Very much like using a different actor as the Hulk version. I loved it. I thought it was a great homage, great start to a finale.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I was wondering how in the world they were going to tie this in, but they made it a dream. That works. I accept that.
And so then kind of made fun of it. And they're like, should we make something a whole entire dream sequence? Like, but yeah, and then like, I mean, it also they did the Savage She-Hulk for the intro for the title. Which I mean, that's kind of the point of where we left off in the last episode, was her being a rage monster. Exactly what we said, is like public perceives it one way, but really it was very reasonable reaction. But the public doesn't see it that way.
Yeah, understandable how angry she had gotten over what was happening, but everyone just saw the Hulk. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I will critique to start off with. So she is in jail for what she did previously, in maximum security jail, way overblown in reaction. I think it's just because she's a Hulk and they didn't know what she could do. And that facility was proven to be Hulk proof, basically. But they put an inhibitor on as the like the plea deal. It's like she can never transform again. But they just kind of ignoring that, and she transforms later. They never show like her inhibitor breaking, taking it off, anything being like her touching the electric fence to short circuit it. You know, that would have been a great, just quick. All right, short circuited. Now I can transform.
That would have been good if she was trying to find a way to do it. It was like, wait a minute, that fence, that could work. Yeah, that actually would have been a really good addition.
Yeah, maybe that's a deleted scene. They were just like, there's too much going on in this episode. I don't know where they decided that would have been the thing that's too much. But yeah,
they wanted it to be too much, though. They wanted the conflict to be too much. It was part of their whole story, it turned out.
Can I just say, especially last week in our discussion video, and then before that we had some as well, but we kind of talked about how this show is very self-aware, and it knows that there's going to be people like the intelligentsia in real life who are going to react to She-Hulk the same way that the intelligentsia is reacting to She-Hulk, and that calling out about like, oh wait, this episode's not over. Am I going to fight another Hulk? Is it going to be red? And like, kind of, we talked about kind of poking fun at people who do what we do with like having discussions and theories and everything. And then this episode, I felt like it was a slap in the face. I mean, in a kind of not like a bad way, but like a slap in the face where it was just like, oh yeah, all that stuff you predicted, yeah, it came true. Well, not everything came true, but a lot of it came true. But we were making fun of it because it's so predictable and it's so dumb. And it's like
yeah, they took all the theories, all the little ideas people had online, and they're like, yeah, you know what? We're just going to give you all of them and show how ridiculous that is. Yeah. It was a choice.
It was a choice. I will say, I still think that leader being the big bad would have been better. And it would have actually been sufficing as a good ending without all of this. But I understand that this is where they really wanted to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that if they continued along the idea of they synthesized the blood. His team synthesized the blood. That having leader in the background would have made so much sense there as one of the few people who have successfully done that before.
Yeah.
But they chose not to go that route, and they went the route they went.
They went the route they went. I will say my notes, because I took notes as I was watching. There's a section when they finally get to Intelligentsia that I'm just like, Todd, ugh, gross. Emil, ugh. Todd, ugh, gross. That was my notes for that section, because it was like, I knew Todd could have been the big bad. They've shown him multiple times. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But like, ugh, Todd. And then Emil shows up and I'm like, oh no, Emil's bad. But then as soon as he started talking, I was like, no, he doesn't know why he's there.
Yeah. He's not bad, he's oblivious.
Yeah. And then Todd taking the Hulk blood and starts transforming. I'm like, oh, gross. He looks gross.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like they were trying to make him look gross. They were like popping him out in like weird places, and it's like, okay, instead of just muscles, it's like they're using the special effects for the muscles, but just like, we're just gonna do it just here and then just here, turning him into like a little play figure with like the ooze or whatever, like to, I don't know. It was, yeah,
and
but it's all part of their strategy, and
yeah, it's part of the strategy, and there's a cleverness to the show that I feel like people are not going to really like give them credit for in some ways, where it's like early on she did the whole, yeah, we're having another cameo, like just remember whose show this is. The name of this episode was whose show is this? Like and like throwing all of these cameos and all these people into it, almost poking fun at that whole like, yeah, this is the point. The point is that it's Jen's show. It's not everyone else. It's not an MCU as far as like all these other characters coming in, even though ultimately they did set up a whole lot. They introduced a bunch of characters, had that plot still happen, but they did it very tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the way they ended up deciding to go with this, just so in the past they have had her talking, breaking the fourth wall, talking to the audience, and I feel like it's kind of grown a little bit, just slowly throughout the course of the show. But then here, it just exploded, went completely bat poop crazy with how far they went. And I feel like people are either going to love it or they're going to hate it.
Yeah.
And I am in that category where I have no idea. Like, I loved it, but part of me also hated it because of what it does to Marvel. Like, how does it fit in? Like, I have no idea how this fits into anything. But
yeah,
I kind of loved it anyway.
It's their furthest departure they've ever done, and that is if I include Deadpool as MCU now. This is more than that. Like,
yes,
this is it off the rails, but like very. I mean, I'll admit the her climbing out of her little Disney Plus screen and going into all of Disney Plus, and like that reminded me of in the comics where they would depict her like jumping really far distances, where it'd have a cell, her jumping her outside of the cells and landing in another cell, where it actually kind of show her traveling through the pages of the comic book, not just like jump, show her in midair as a cell, then show her landing as a cell. So it was very reminiscent of that. So it's not like there's precedent or reason to do it this way. It was just, it felt a little jarring, to be quite honest.
Yeah, when it popped into the Disney Plus, like the menu screen for choosing shows in Disney Plus, my wife picked up the remote and was like bringing it towards the TV. She thought that like we had accidentally hit something and we had gone back, so she was ready to restart the episode. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on, Jen is still talking. We still hear her talking. And then she pops out. We're like, okay, down goes the remote. Oh my goodness, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Very. That's a fourth wall break to end all fourth wall breaks, basically.
Yeah. She broke the fourth wall, literally climbed through it to go into another fourth wall.
So here's something I have not done. I want to do it. I'm going to do it, but I need a lot of time to do it. This episode in all of those scenes, like the real world scenes, like the studio, the Disney Plus, the her going through text conversations, emails show up. There's a lot of screens that have a lot of written content that may say things, it may not say things, it may have good jokes, it may not have good jokes. I want to go through and do like a frame by frame reading all of that, because they even like have season 2 She-Hulk ideas up on a wall. And I'm like, I don't think any of those will be real, but what's up there? I didn't actually get a close look. But do you think, I mean, it sounds like there's probably going to be a She-Hulk season 2 already. If they kind of throwing that in as a joke, but serious.
Yeah. We'll see her again. I definitely think we'll see her again.
But not on the big screen.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see if we see her on the big screen. That was an interesting.
Yeah. This is a weird episode. I was not prepared to have to talk about an episode that was like this.
Oh, yeah.
It's good. I mean, jokes. Here's some things I watch with subtitles all the time. The reason I watch with subtitles, I've got a young child who falls asleep before we usually watch all this stuff. I don't want the show to be too loud. And so I have subtitles on. That way it helps me between them talking, hearing it with lower sound, and that. The thing is it kind of spoils things in some ways sometimes, because when they were like, oh, you got to talk to Kevin, it showed up as K.E.V in the subtitles.
Interesting.
And I'm like, why is it doing that? And it does that. They do that, the joke, like saying about Kevin, saying his name Kevin over and over again for several minutes before you actually get the reveal. And I'm like, Kevin's a robot or a robotic person, or I'm like, this is very MODOK of them. I know MODOK's coming eventually, but like, why make it MODOK if it's Kevin? It was like obviously Kevin Feige. But
yeah,
it was just like seeing that, I was like, oh well, that's kind of the twist coming up, is that it's not Kevin. It's a different kind of Kevin.
And my mind went to MODOK as well. So now I did not have subtitles on, so I did not see the K.E.V.I.N. But I knew it couldn't be the actual Kevin Feige. Just because of what he's been already in the MCU. Like, he can't show up again and be this character. Like, I feel like that would be too much to try and explain.
I don't know, because that's supposed to just be the real world.
It is. I don't know. I was skeptical that they would actually show him. So when she's going through to try and find him, I'm like, okay, she's trying to find him. There's a buildup. What is she going to find? Because I didn't think it was going to be him. So she goes into that room and it pans upward at something round up there. And for a moment, I did think it was MODOK. It had the big screens. I'm like, oh my goodness, they're introducing MODOK here. That is a twist I didn't see coming. And then it was not MODOK. No, it was not M.O.K. MODOK, or I can't spell. It wasn't MODOK. It was Kevin.
Okay. It was Kevin.
And it was, yeah.
And then design the robot to have a little, basically a little baseball cap and everything. Yeah. I mean, I actually enjoyed the scene with She-Hulk and Kevin. I thought that was a good kind of like discussion and breakdown, talking about it, like why it, that was where everything was leading. Everyone saw it leading there, but why that's dumb and why that's not what she would ever want to do or would do. And then like rewrite it. And he's like, all right, well, this is the only time this is going to happen. We're writing this, so like, we're getting rid of this loophole where you can come out and change things. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, and I love the joke. I wrote down this because I did love it, where they're like, oh, we're going to pan away from you, transform while we're not looking at you, because our VFX team is already working on another project. Then you hear the Wakanda drums.
Yeah. Yeah, there was just so many subtle hints in this episode, like little things that they added in that were so incredibly clever.
It's making fun of the fans in some ways, but like, when are the X-Men coming? How are you going to introduce them? They're like,
yeah, and she gives a thumbs up to the audience, like,
yeah,
I'm asking for you. I know what you want. Yeah.
Oh.
I do think it was a great episode in how they did it. I feel like they knew what they were doing with this episode. They knew everything that they wanted to put in there, how they wanted to play this joke. and they nailed it. Uh, I almost wonder if that's kind of what they wanted the whole show to be, and it just they couldn't get the whole show to be like that.
Well, wasn't there reports before about that they had to tone back a lot of their fourth wall breaks and things?
Yeah.
So like this wouldn't have been a tonal shift if they had been doing things like this all along, but they were originally told. Although then again, now that I think about that news story said Kevin didn't want them to do that many fourth wall breaks. Was this them being meta? Were they basically saying that the Kevin bot was trying to make it? Oh, he was making the show that
could be.
I'm gonna have to go back. They're trolling us this whole time.
Yeah, yeah, we're definitely gonna have to go back and look at exactly what those things said. That would be so great if it alluded to this.
This, I mean, I will say this. Like my wife and I were talking afterwards. I was like, okay, we've seen the last episode. What do you think of the series as a whole? And she was saying, I watched it all. Like she like just wasn't distracted. There wasn't times where it was like slow, where she would just be like, all right, pull phone and play. Same thing as like, honestly, even though I love Falcon and Winter Soldier, there are times where I was just like, I don't know what's going on because I wasn't paying attention. But that was never the case with this show. It kept your attention the whole time, for better or worse.
Yeah, and yeah, my wife. I watched it with my wife as well, and it was. I didn't ask her what she thought of the show at the end, but it ends, and we both just look at each other, and then she has an idea on her face, and she says, "Do you think it's possible they purposefully made the first few episodes bad to set this up?" And I'm like, wait a minute, what is this theory of yours? And she's like, well, maybe they set those episodes up in that way, knowing people would make fun of it online so they could then have their jokes at the end have so much more credibility. And I'm like, I don't know, but I mean, it's a theory.
Yeah.
In a way, it kind of does add to the way the show ended. I don't know.
It's just been very weird. I like to call out Super Soldier Serum being very similar to Hulk Blood. And I'm like, they are very this self-awareness. I've honestly never seen a show like this.
Yeah.
Like there's been a lot of shows. There's been on the same idea, and usually there's like shows that do like a one-off episode. So like what comes to mind immediately is the Supernatural episode where they somehow come into the real world using from like the trickster guy, I believe. And they're like interacting with like what they were, where one person sees himself as a soap star previously. It's very jokey, tongue-in-cheek, awkward, weird, fun. This was next level though.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know exactly the episode you're talking about. And in that one, they wrote it in to have it still make sense of how they got there, why it was set up this way. So they were able to make fun of the real world, while still having it tie in completely with the storyline.
Yeah.
So everything made sense of how they got there. And yeah, this show didn't have that. They don't have any explanation for how Jen was able to kick her way out, change everything, go back, and suddenly everything's fixed. And which is weird because I'm someone who needs an explanation for everything. And I guarantee I'm going to be digging through this episode. This episode I'm going to see again. I don't know how many of the prior ones I will.
Yeah.
But this episode I'm going to watch again. Because I need to find some way to justify this in my head. And so that's what I'm going to be doing here. That said, even though I'm one of those people who feels the need to have things explained or have a reason, have a background story behind things, I liked this a lot better than I liked that Supernatural episode. I felt like that Supernatural episode it didn't fit with the show, and it was by far my least favorite Supernatural episode. You can disagree, and everyone else there can disagree with me.
Yep.
I did not like that episode at all of Supernatural, but this was my favorite She-Hulk episode. Like, it was completely different, but like I enjoyed it. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. I need to watch it again. We discussed previously that we probably won't do theory videos about She-Hulk until the season's over. There's a lot. I feel like there may be a lot of material here for us to look through and figure out some videos on.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, 100% agree. Going into this episode, I had nothing for this show, and I was ready to move on to theory videos and other things. I have three of them already off the top of my head from watching the show just now, and I'm like, any of those theory videos, writing them up could be a lot of fun. And so it completely did a 180 on how I view the show. Whether I end up making those or not, we will see. You listeners from the future, you know whether I made these videos. But yeah, we'll see. There's so much that we can do with this show now.
And so let's talk about one thing that may be MCU impacting.
Sure.
So at the end, well, there's two things. One, we'll see how MCU impacting it is. So I'll talk about the lesser first. Wong breaks Emil out of jail.
Yes.
So we, at this point, Emil can keep showing up. I think he's first of all, fantastic actor, fantastic character. I love that it's like actually a development of a character that really was just supposed to be like a one and done villain, and then bringing him back and building him up more. I'm excited to see if he comes back in the MCU more. Love it. Yeah,
I completely agree. I think he did a fantastic job with how they changed his character in the show. He rolled with it. He played it off believably. And yeah, I'd love to see him again.
Other twist. Well, I won't call it a twist because they alluded to it. We thought it was just like people have talked about it coming. Hulk shows back up during the really nice picnic that Matt Murdock is at, and he's trying to convince everyone this is really this. He's just here for the week. That's it. He's actually just here for the week, not going to stay long term. But Hulk shows up, says he was on Sakaar, and he's like, I want to introduce you to my son, Scar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was important. And Kevin really wanted us to know this.
Yeah.
Because he mentioned that he needed Bruce in order to reveal. And then General Thurs interrupted him.
It was introduced, specifically said introduce.
Exactly, to introduce.
So we knew a new character would be coming from it.
Yeah. I actually thought that they were going to end there with it.
Yeah, me too.
I figured, okay, they're introducing his son from Planet Hulk, or I think it was Planet Hulk. Was that or World War Hulk? The storyline in the comics where he had a son on Sakaar. I figured, okay, that's what they're alluding to again, and now they're going to drop it. No, they brought it back in. And
I thought because they mentioned it, they were going to drop it, but
exactly.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'll be really curious how / if this shows up again. Like
She-Hulk season 2.
How can this show fit into the MCU given the way that they ended up playing this out? I don't know. Like which things happened and which things didn't happen. I feel like this did happen since it was separate from that whole dual reality situation that took place.
I mean, there was a comment, I believe it was made by Kevin, about the introducing of the character, so like basically setting up movie, I believe. So it makes it sound like there's going to be a Hulk movie where Scar's in it with Hulk, but really I thought they're going to do or once I saw that, I was thinking through it, I was like, She-Hulk season 2 with Scar kind of as the lovable dumb brute kind of thing, where he like he's like kind of like the like George of the Jungle, or the other things where it's like you take the character who's strong and great in this area and then you put him into civilization and all of a sudden they don't understand. It's like Thor movie number 1, the original Thor movie, where he like slam another, and it's like that's not how you act in real life. That's how I'm kind of picturing a She-Hulk season 2 where her and her cousin once removed
I believe you
have that kind of interaction where he's just kind of a lovable brute who doesn't know civilization.
Yeah, could be.
Or just World War Hulk movie and Scar's in it.
I don't know. Only time will tell, and we got a long time before we're gonna get the answer to that one.
That's one thing MCU right now. it feels like there's a long time between the same character showing up multiple times, or at least as the main character. Like, it's not like, I mean, for instance, Shang-Chi, it's going to be like 6-7 years between movies for him. That's a long time. It used to be like 2 to 3 years between, but now there's so much going on. It's longer between. I mean, Doctor Strange was like 10 years between. It was not quite. It was 7 years, 8 years, something like that. But it was a long time.
It was a long time. Yeah, there's just so many of them now. The universe has expanded tenfold, or more than that, like way more than that. It is exponentially increased, and they're not stopping. They're still continually looking to say, all right, who in the comics have we not brought forward yet? Who can we introduce? Every single show, every single movie, they're introducing new heroes, new villains, new characters.
Who can we introduce?
Yes. I thought you were pointing at Stan Lee. I'm like, yeah, they introduced him too. Yeah, no. Bringing the X-Men, it's gonna happen. Everyone's looking forward to it, but they got a lot of other characters they're bringing in the meantime.
Jen's looking forward to it.
Yeah. I did feel a camaraderie when she smiled at the camera. I was like, thank you, Jen. Thank you for asking that question. We all want to know.
Yep. And Kevin did listen to her for some things, brought Daredevil back, led the story in that way. So she did have some influence over him. So we'll see. Maybe that's not the only influence that's going to move forward. Maybe she'll also influence X-Men coming out soon or something. But so we've now seen 9 episodes, the first season of She-Hulk, the entire thing. Let's get some opinions. How do we feel this show? Let's first say, do you like this show or not? How do you feel about the show? And then we'll talk about where it may lay in all of MCU.
Gotcha. Okay, so the first question, how do I feel about the show? Did I enjoy She-Hulk? Yes, mostly. I feel like it's a Marvel show, and I love Marvel. There was a lot of things that they did in the show that I don't feel like it really worked the way that it could have. I feel like there's a lot of areas that they were trying things out and they didn't work. I also feel like there's a lot of areas that they were trying things out and they did work. And so this was a show that it grew so much throughout these 9 episodes. And I came to understand what the show was and then got flipped on my head 6 times along the way. To say the show is a wild ride means so much in this one that it was. It was a wild ride, but not because of just how the show went. Trying to figure out what the show is. Was that wild ride here? And that is not the way these shows typically go. I enjoyed it. Not all of it, but enough of it that overall I did enjoy the show. Now, where does it land amongst the other Marvel properties? I feel like Marvel has hit so many out of the park and had a couple that they also that weren't as high up there as some others. As far as the Marvel TV shows, because this is a Marvel TV show, I feel like you have to compare the TV shows to the TV shows more than the movies. The movies can compare to themselves. As far as the TV shows, I feel like Marvel has really done well with those. With WandaVision and Loki and Miss Marvel, so many of these shows were just so good in allowing us to get a longer term learning about this character, watching this character grow. That superhero story that I love so much, and these decades of Marvel that we've had, I am not tired of them. So for me, I enjoyed those other shows more. Not that I didn't enjoy this one, but I enjoyed those other ones more overall. But I am excited to watch this last episode again and try and figure it out. I don't know if I'm going to love it or hate it the next time I watch it. I feel like it's still going to go back and forth. But overall, for the show as a whole, I enjoyed it. But in looking back over the Marvel shows that have come thus far, it is not towards the top. It is towards the bottom of those shows just because of what a high bar Marvel has set in their MCU TV shows thus far. So what do you think, Jade?
Yeah. So early on in the season, I said that I like the individual characters. I'm not sure about the show. Now I've seen the rest of the season. I think that still holds. I really do like individual characters. I mean, at this point, I can't even picture anyone else as Jen Walters and She-Hulk. Like she, I think did a great job, like really, really, really good job. Um, all the side characters, I really enjoyed all of them. Like even her parents, really enjoyed them. Like I really enjoyed a lot of the characters. I'll say enjoy in a different way for the villains that they serve the purpose that they were meant to. I felt gross listening to them talk, and that was definitely the intent. So that works. The show itself, I think it's fun. I'm not sure if I think it's that good. I still think I think it's good. I don't think it's great. But I think it's fun. It's a show that I feel like I could just watch again casually, but I don't know if it's ever going to be a show that I'll crave to watch again. Whereas Loki and WandaVision, which are two of my favorite of the shows that they've come out with, and actually even Miss Marvel, I crave to rewatch those where I'm like, I really want to rewatch all of WandaVision again. We'll see with time, but I think it was a fun show, but I don't know if I really think it's that well, not as big, as good as the other ones. But it was fun, so it's still good. I still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of touched a little bit upon the where it stands in the MCU, towards the lower half for me. But I did really enjoy some of the things that they did with it and attempted to do with it. And honestly, lower half of the MCU still higher than a majority of things I watch.
Yeah.
Like, really fair.
Yeah. And although it's one of the lower TV shows, I'm going to be completely honest. I will be disappointed if they don't do a season 2.
Yeah.
Because I did grow attached to these characters, and I completely agree. The characters were great, so well constructed. Even the little characters were given such personality that you grow to just understand them and just kind of be able to predict what they're going to do because you get their personality and they're consistent with their personality. And so I want to see where those characters are going to go moving forward. And so I hope we do.
Yeah. I will say, with all these wall breaks, I almost was like, is Gwenpool going to show up? This is very like a good time for Gwenpool to show up, and because she was like this on the next level, because it was her background is that she's a real person who fell into the MCU while the comics universe when she was reading them and everything. It felt very much like that to me, but I enjoyed it. I think it was very good.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to touch on? Or are we calling it there?
I think that's everything. That's everything I wrote down to touch on. There's a lot more fun little jokes, quips. Watching Pug try to be a bad person was adorable.
Yeah. Yeah, that character was great. That to have a redeemable male character that so strongly feels the pain of this situation, and he doesn't even want to pretend. He feels so strongly against it that he does not even want to play the role to achieve his ends because he doesn't want anything to do with that. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, there we have it. 9 episodes of She-Hulk that have now passed. What do you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Was it somewhere in between? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you so much for going through the season with us. And we look forward to talking to you again the next time Marvel comes forward with a TV show, the next movie that comes up. We have Black Panther Wakanda Forever coming. So excited for that one. So stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our discussions. Like this video if you enjoyed it. And as always, thank you for watching.